I went through a divorce and completely not an advocate of it. So worried about my kids and the transition because I had been through multiple marriages and divorces with my parents.
When nobody's watching, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you have a belief in God or in the higher power, there's someone else watching.
How do I take my values to another level? How do I make you proud? How do I make my wife proud? I'm not saying I was perfect like that my whole life.
Man, it's so cool to be here with you today, Dean. And you probably know a little bit of what I talk about, and kind of my framework of how I live my life is through faith, family, fitness, and freedom.
I sure do.
So I'd love to.
And your fitness is looking good,
Hey,
man. I have
thanks,
to tell you,
brother.
from the last time I saw you, you're half the man you used to be.
That is the biggest compliment I can get right now. So I really, really appreciate that. But I go from a faith first approach.
Yeah.
And I know I've heard you talk about faith and how it guides you. And I'd love to hear your take on kind of faith in business and how you lead your life and where it is in faith. I know that faith and fear are both things that we believe both are they're imagined.
Yeah.
And I've heard you talk about that. I'd love to hear a little more about kind of what that is for you in your daily life when you're kind of leading by faith.
So I'm going to boil it down to, because I just like to be completely transparent, what my beliefs in faith are at this phase of my life. Mm-hmm. And it definitely evolves and changes over the decades, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right? What I thought religion and faith was in my 20s, I went to Catholic school. My kids have gone to Christian school. What I thought it was in my 20s has just evolved over time. And again, from my personal experience, my belief in God, belief in a higher power, feels like a parent love at this phase of my life. It didn't feel that way in my 20s and 30s. It was more little fear, little judgmental, but maybe being a parent of 4, the way I love my children. And if you see any of the word of God, that we can't even compare. The way we love our children is in no comparison to the way he loves us. So for me, it became a different role. Like I feel like I have parent love. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
It's
father's love.
Right. And it changed, maybe being a parent. And with that, and I'm, again, the way I live my life at this phase, and please know that I'm not perfect by any means, guilty of lots of things that I could be better at. But there was something, I went through a divorce and completely not an advocate of it. So worried about my kids and the transition because I had been through multiple marriages and divorces with my parents. They were married multiple times by the time I was a teenager. So I'm going to get to the point. The answer is, what does it mean in my life at this phase? When I met my wife, Lisa, who you know dearly, is the love of my life. And I'm so blessed to have her in my life. We had 2 more children and all the family gets along good. Even my ex, everybody's in a great place. Thank you, God. But there was one thing I said to myself when I met my wife, Lisa. I wasn't prepared to get back into another relationship. I just thought I was going to be super dad and I was going to ride it out until they went off to college and then maybe I'd consider a relationship. And Lisa comes into my life and she was the person meant for me. And I believe I'm the person meant for her. And I remember thinking to myself and we have our own conversations, and my conversation with God is I remember thinking, how do I take my values to another level? How do I make you proud? How do I make my wife proud? But not just what you see, not just going to church on a Sunday and dropping money in and praying, and not just coming home and giving my wife a kiss and giving her flowers and tell her I love her. Maybe it's this phase of my life, but I really believe who we are in our faith or our culture or our values is who we are when no one is watching. Mm-hmm. And the biggest shift in my life was that. Because I don't know if I was a good man at the level I wanted to be when no one was watching prior. And I mean that. I'll be transparent to say that. And all I said to myself is, if my wife hired a private investigator and she filmed me for an entire week and I didn't know it, and she watched every second of the decisions I made, the way I worked my phone, the people I talked to, the people that walked by, if she watched every second, when she was done, she'd love me more. And it shifted who I am as a man, because I make different decisions. It's the invisible, because that's who I am. And then I thought to myself, if I truly have a connection with a higher power, with God, he is always watching.
Yeah.
Right? So that might not be the answer, the direction you're going, but at this phase of my life, I just feel like I am who I am when nobody's watching. And the decisions I make in the invisible dictate the man I am, the spiritual connection I have, my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife. I want my kids to watch it and go, I'm proud of my dad.
And at the end of the day, that truly, same here. I want to be an example of what's possible for my kids. I want to be my, to my wife, the absolute best husband that she could, more than what she could ever even dream of, be there for her. And with that, and I believe that happens when you keep, for me, I call it keeping God first in your life. And just doing exactly what you just said. When nobody's watching, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you have a belief in God or in the higher power, there's something else watching.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you're making him proud or whatever you're.
And you know how it transcends? I'm sorry, I jump in here.
No, I want to hear
But
it.
I want you to think about this in a relationship with God, in a marriage, in just a relationship, in a partnership of two businesses, two business people or businesses coming together, or a partnership. It creates something in the invisible that it's hard to imagine. With that, I've taken that same relationship with my partner, Tony Robbins, right? Tony was someone who shifted my life 27 years ago through tapes and books and audios, and now he's my dearest friend in the world. We have that same relationship. I do more for him. I try to outdo what I could do for him. And he does the same thing. He'll call me out of the blue. And I'm like, damn it, he got me this week. And then I think, well, what can I do for this guy? Like, his legacy means something to me, right? When he's gone, I'm helping his company right now. I want to do everything in my power. So in 100 years from now, that man is getting the respect he should. He's the GOAT. He's changed more lives than most people on this planet, right? But the reason I'm sharing all that, a partnership, intimate relationship, marriage, relationship with God, is I see it in my wife firsthand. That the more that she knows the man I am when I'm not watching, the more she looks at me like she just met me. My wife still looks at me like we're flirting and dating, like we knew each other for 8 weeks and it's 8 years, right? It's because she knows when she's not there, I represent myself the same way. I don't have a wandering eye. I'm not doing stuff on my phone when no one's watching. I get to come home with no password on my phone and put it there. I hope she goes through it. Hope she looks at every message because she'll get done and give me a kiss.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And again, I'm not saying I was perfect like that my whole life, but that's where I'm at now. And this sense of peace, and I want to translate that to business. This sense of peace, this sense of oneness, this sense of not being someone at church and someone to your kids and someone to your wife and someone when you're out with the boys and someone out when you're traveling by yourself. You could have a different version of each of those. But to be congruent, my business has exponentially grown. I am like no one, I don't think anyone, and I hope you and I had the chance to meet years ago. I hope no one ever meets me and go, wow, Dean's not the same as I thought. The best compliment I get is, hey man, that's the same guy I saw on TV or I saw on the internet, and it's the same guy I talked to.
It's exactly what happened to you and I when we met. I tell everybody, the Dean is who you saw. The Dean I saw on stage is the same Dean I met with when we got to hang out in person. So Dean and I, we were the first ones in the gym each morning. I got to know you on a personal level. Yeah. And I tell everybody that hey, Dean is the real deal. And Tony the same way. I got to meet Tony. Tony's been a mentor of mine for over 22 years.
Amazing.
I went to my first UPW, and as you know, I serve at a lot of his events, volunteering, because I've attended all of them. And that's guided my life. And I think it's so awesome that you two are partnered up and doing things here at Mastermind. Yeah. And I know that you guys have a big launch coming up, and that ties right into my fourth part of my freedom, and how you can have freedom in your life. And you can do that by just turning your knowledge into a business. Yeah. And you and Tony partnered up, and you have an event coming up in May that I would love everybody that's watching this or knows me to attend, because it changed my life. Attending the very first one of these, the Knowledge Business Blueprint event, completely changed my life. It got me here.
How great is that? That's why you're sitting in this.
It got me here sitting here with you today, was because I took a chance and invested in myself on the Knowledge Business Blueprint, which is the OG version of
exactly. It's evolved a lot.
It's evolved a ton.
But it was still great back then.
Exactly.
Well, I think when people realize, and it's hard for some people, especially if you don't know it, but it's hard to realize that your life experience is valuable, right? You've walked the path. You've failed. You succeeded. You found the map. And that map could be better in your career than you were when you first started. It could be better in your relationships. It could be better that you got through something, that you got healthy, that you went through something tough and you're on the other side, or something you're absolutely passionate about. That experience is actually where the value lives, because someone else is starting off on day one. You've watched me do it. I've said to people, hey, you got two choices. If this was a magic wand, I could put $100,000 in your bank account, or I could send you back to spend a week with your 20-year-old self. What would you choose?
Exactly.
Everybody chooses. There's no one ever chooses the money. I'm like, what about $1 million? Nope. Go back. You watch the chat light up. Go back. Why? Because you know the value of your experiences. But when you understand that your experience is that valuable to someone else who's starting off where you once were, you'll realize why this industry that Tony and I are in for 76 years combined between the two of us is one of the fastest growing industries in the world, because people are going, if I want to learn to do something more, if I want to be better at fly fishing, or better at selling, or better at being an accountant, or better at anything, I could go back to college, get general knowledge. I could try to learn on my own through trial and error, or I could just find somebody who's already been there and cut a check to go faster. That's the knowledge industry. It's why it's at $1 billion a day. And I have to tell you, when Tony and I launched the Knowledge Business Blueprint 7 years ago, we were out of our mind excited, but we didn't know the world was going to be excited. I have to tell you, we didn't know if people would go, yeah, I have value. And our job was to show people, oh my God, not only do you have value, you have insane value. And there's somebody, and I'm telling you, if you're watching or listening around, there's somebody waiting for you to share your experience right now. And they can only hear it from you. So year one, we had never done this before. We didn't even practice. We just turned on the camera and went live. And to this day, it was a movement. And if you remember, it was the biggest, still probably the biggest launch in history. Hundreds of thousands of people attended. And it started this wave of over 100 countries of people going, yes, I can do this. Now, 7 years later, we've done many events, close to 1 million people an event. And we're realizing this movement is compounding. This industry is growing. And it really is how Tony and I get to leave our legacy. If we can teach hundreds of thousands of people to do what Tony and I do, and now you have the internet, you have easy access, low cost barrier to entry. You don't need money to start. You got AI that can help you go faster once you understand. You got education from Tony and I. You got a tool that can get things. It is the perfect time to do this. And that's why we get so excited. So it's May 15th through the 17th this year. We're calling it Thrive in 2025.
Did you come up with that?
I did.
I thought you did.
It's just a good rhyme.
It is. It goes together really well.
I was on the phone with somebody like, what are you going to call the event this year? He goes, I said, I just want people to thrive in 2025. And I'm like, okay,
you were a poet and didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, make sure that you're there, because it's a free event. And where do you get to go see this guy and Tony in the same room for free?
Yeah, and we got Matthew McConaughey coming because he turned his book into a course.
Yeah.
And one of the best-selling courses ever.
Yep.
My friend Jay Shetty's coming because he took from being a monk to
Yep.
evolving, and now he's got a huge coaching program. So he took this evolution as well. Some other really powerful guests too. It's gonna be a fun event. One you don't want to miss for sure.
Exactly. So make sure you're there. So I hope that you join us. The URL is thrivewithnicholas.com. So make sure that you're there. What were the dates again, Dean?
May 15th through the 17th,
May 15th
about
through
3
the
hours a
17th.
day.
Okay, perfect. And, well, you say 3 hours, but when Tony's on, you never know.
Tony time, you don't know.
Tony does not, he wears a watch on occasion.
But it's not turned on.
The guy doesn't really know how to actually, he's value first, outcome driven.
Yes, absolutely.
Whenever it happens. So don't get excited if it's more than 3 hours on the day that Tony's there. Dean normally keeps things on track, but if Tony's on stage, you're going to get a ton of value. So don't worry about the times, but make sure you're there. Thrivewithnicholas.com, May 15th through the 17th. You will not be disappointed. Dean, I appreciate you, brother.
You got it, man. Awesome.
It was great.
Good stuff.
Yeah, man.